G'day, Krystle. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
Good. Thanks so much for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. I've been a bit of a fan of your work for some time. I love some of the adventures you get up to and some of the adventures you've captured. You've had some pretty wild times. What is it about that adventure genre that draws you in? Is it the action and the adrenaline pump that you get out of the activity, or is it the recording that you get more of a kick out of?
I honestly, if I really think about it, it's just the chance or the opportunity to be immersed in nature. My career originally started as a sports photographer, and I thought that was going to be my path. And I dreamt about going to the Olympics or running the sidelines at the biggest sporting events on this earth. But the problem with that is there's always boundaries. There's always
Yeah.
restrictions. And after a few years and a radically changing newspaper industry is that it wasn't fun anymore. And I
Mm.
didn't feel like I could be creative. But on the side, I was always shooting adventure. And the thing I loved about it was that the only boundaries that were forced upon me would be by Mother Nature. Is there a cliff? Is there a gigantic swirl? Is there whatever barrier it be? But I felt like there was just so much more freedom to be far more creative, but also a lot healthier. Because if you can imagine, so I remember photographing the Ashes. This was a long test match, mainly because it felt long because we lost that year and Australia had given up. So it's a fifth test match. It was dismal to watch. The Barmy Army were by far the most entertaining aspect of that.
Yeah.
But I remember sitting there and you got to watch every single ball because what if it's a catch? What if it's out? What if it's a...
Something controversial happens or whatever.
And I remember I would drink probably like two soft drinks a day and
Right.
eat sugary snacks and just anything to make sure I could try to stay alert every moment of that game. And yeah, I felt really unhealthy after a few years because my diet was poor, I was inactive. So you can start to see like there are a
Yes.
lot.
Stadium food's not the best diet, is it?
No, there's a lot of reasons why the adventure is so much more appealing.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, how did that start for you? Where did you start in not just photography, but actually doing adventure activities?
Back in those newspaper days, I was working as a stringer. So
Mm.
that would result at least one shift a week, which was my bare minimum at that time. It's hard
Yeah.
to imagine that now, but it would be my bare minimum. I was living with a partner at the time and I could pay my rent, electricity, food, but that would be it. So if I had a second shift or even a third shift, it's, oh, wow, I've got a little bit of extra cash. At the most, maybe it was 3 shifts a week. That still left me a lot of spare time. And
Mm.
so I was just always motivated and excited that I would go photograph ocean swimming, or I would go off to the Australian 24-hour mountain bike championships or
Good.
surfing. So the best way, and I know for a lot of people who go, how do you just get started? Is that I found that events were one of my best ways to not only, but also just have not a platform, but have an opportunity to just shoot something. Just
It gives you a feel and a taste for what it's like.
absolutely. And there was no cost on my end to try and set up an event or to set up these athletes. They were there wanting to compete in this event. So it gave me the perfect grounds to practice my craft and to make mistakes. And yeah, there was very little consequence by going to these events because no one had expectation on me of what was I going to shoot. And
Mm.
if I did do a good job, then I could approach magazines or I could approach athletes. And bit by bit, I would build a network.
Yeah, fantastic. So the photography side of things, where did that start? How long ago did you get into photography, and what was the impetus to make that your career?
I absolutely adored the Kodak disposable camera growing
Mhm.
up, and it really warms my heart to see them coming back on the market because I just think they are a joy. Because
Mm.
I take one camera per camping trip. And I remember that thought process going, okay, I've only got 5 images today, and
Yeah,
tomorrow I've got four. And some days you go, I didn't see many moments today. So, oh, tomorrow I get to take eight because I have a few left over. And
nice.
I think that process I think we really underestimate how much, I don't know, there's so much satisfaction out of that. Whereas with a phone, it takes away that magic. It's, oh, yep, snap, like you just keep shooting, but you're not thinking about what that photo is going to be. I think that selective process does force one into going, actually, you know what? I'm not going to press the shutter because I think there's going to be something else. And it's a gamble, but
Mm.
it's exciting because there's so
Yeah,
much
you
spontaneity.
might miss a moment, but you might pick another one up later.
Totally. At the end of high school, I wasn't the smartest kid. Like I lost interest in maths, English, science, physics, you name it. I flunked those subjects. But I love music, art, and sport.
Yep.
And it was my mum who suggested, you seem to like taking photos, so why not be a photographer? And at first I thought, what the hell do you do with where does that career go? And like
How do you do that?
but I had nothing else going for me. And I tell people that, look, university is not the make or break in a creative career. It was just
Yeah.
my path. And to be honest, like I was so frustrated with the course. I felt like there was a lot of irrelevant subjects associated with the degree. But the great thing about that was I was so frustrated is that it motivated me to go out in the field and actually go find mentors in the field. Yeah, I didn't rely on university to be my only teaching grounds. And so it's interesting, like we all take very different paths into getting into photography. There is no right or wrong way. It's just everyone has a slightly different way in how they find themselves in a creative career. But I would say is sometimes when you think the situation isn't working for you, sometimes that can be one of the greatest motivators because it forces you to go, this isn't working. How am I going to learn about this thing that I love?
Yeah, fantastic. And in terms of where it's taken you, it's obviously you've given you the opportunity to travel the world and see events and activities that many people don't get to see. Where did you start to feel, okay, this is definitely where I want to be in life?
It's a challenge because the problem, especially with social media these days, is that there's such a romanticism that still exists. And there have been so many amazing moments. I do not regret for a second the choices that I've made and living life on the road for a good 10 years. It definitely came with its struggles though and challenges. And I can assure you that I took off when I was 25. I left Sydney. I, no longer rented a place. All my things just sat in storage on my grandparents' property here on the Sunshine Coast. And at that time, the biggest wake up moment I had was first I had an opportunity to go work as a guide in Antarctica. And that was an incredible opportunity that came to me via a friend from university, one of my lecturers. And that contract, I had 2.5 months of work. I got to save up a bit of money. And I remember I was on my way home and my ticket, I went through New Zealand so I could see my sister. And I sat there in a lounge room and it just dawned on me going, why am I going back to Australia? I don't have a relationship to go back to. I don't have a place to rent. I don't have a job with the paper anymore. So this is the perfect chance that I could have ever asked for to take off because I have no responsibility. Not no, but no, nothing grounding me or forcing me back. And I remember going, I'm going to book a ticket to the States and I'm going to go for 3 months and I'm just going to see what happens. And the worst thing that could happen is I run out of money. I fly back home. I find some work. I save up, pay the debt off and try again. And that was the thought process for a long time was what's the worst that could happen? I run out of money or as long as I've got a ticket home, I can always start again. But until I was 29, there was definitely the ups and downs. What I can assure others is that I definitely had those crisis points. Like my friends are getting married. Now my friends are having kids and they're getting mortgages and everyone's moving on with life. And I was worried that, am I being foolish here? Am I being irresponsible? Am I trying to ignore certain things that perhaps my life should have gone down? I don't know. There's no right or wrong, but it wasn't until I was 29, I had this 1 month and I had 3 jobs. It was September and they were dream jobs. And I remember for the first time, probably in my 20s or in a very long time, paid off that credit card debt, but I actually had leftovers and I had savings. And wasn't that a dream? Like then it gave that confidence of, okay, this is not so foolish. This is a viable career.
And all of that is from photography. Yeah.
And it gave me that confidence of, okay, I can keep doing this. Like I can actually make money because at some point I realized like I met older photographers along the way. And I remember thinking, I don't want to be a dirtbag when I'm 50 or 60 or even 40. Like, I don't want to rely on friends' generosity to take me in and cook me a meal because I'm living dollar to dollar. And at some point, I felt like I had to wake up and go, yeah, I do need my home. I do need a safe place to come back to that I can call mine. And at some point, I won't be fit and able to do what I'm doing now. And so how am I going to set myself up that I'm at least going to be okay? And so, yeah, from 29 for the next few years, probably right up until the pandemic. I had a great streak. I was making some good money and jobs were coming to me, which felt an incredible validation process.
Mm.
But then the pandemic hits and ooh, hasn't that been a doozy for us all?
That's, yeah, been a wake-up call for a lot of industries, I think. There's not a lot of call for photography when, or at least artistic photography anyway, when everyone's choking on their own mucus, so to speak.
That, but it's also, I feel like our industries are still recovering, but also still trying to figure out what is next in the creative.
Yeah.
No one's too sure, but it feels more inconsistent than it ever has.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I know a lot of professionals, including myself, who are struggling. Like there may be a good job here and there, and it adds this moment of relief, but then suddenly it's this vicious cycle where job comes in, pay off debts, maybe a little something, couple months go by, no work, and I'm back to square one.
Yeah.
Holy shit, how am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to survive? And it's a lot of us are caught in a cycle where we can't seem to find a good consistency.
Yeah, the consistency to get you out of the square one cycle. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I don't want to give up on this career yet. I've definitely been very close to giving up because it does feel too hard some days. But I still have this faith that no, there is still a way. I don't know what the answers are, but I'm still fighting. And yeah, look, when a magazine goes, we have $120 for you, you go, great, I'll take it. I will take anything at this point because it does all contribute. And
Definitely.
it's, yeah, magazines, oh, it sucks. Like it's not what it once what it once was.
Yeah.
I still appreciate and adore the fact that print still lives. And I would rather support those magazines when I can and give my work. Hopefully they can pay a small fee. Some of them can't. And you go, you know what? I just admire that you're still fighting to keep print alive.
Yeah.
The commercial world is just so fiercely competitive. Like any industry, when you see the top 1% who really truly make it,
Yep.
okay, it's possible. It's just hot dang, you just have to fight hard.
Yeah, you just got to be in there. And is it that drives your creative choices as well, that need to make money, or is it more something that you go, okay, I want to go off and do this, and so I'm going to do that regardless of whether or not I make money out of it?
I make terrible decisions when it comes to making money. I would say most of my passion projects they've never made back immediate money.
Yep.
And that's okay because a lot of times when I look back, I couldn't tell you. I don't make budgets, which some people go, oh my God, you're an idiot. But I don't make budgets. I just go, cool. I know what I can spend because that's what's left on my credit card. But I look back on experiences. And gosh, there's a storm chase we did a few years ago, and I was offered this incredible job, and it would have paid handsomely. But I was like, no, I can't do this. I have to storm chase.
Okay.
I look back going, oh, was that the smartest? But what I can assure you is that when I look back, I can remember that day where we intercepted this mothership. It's a very unique storm formation that I've only ever seen one so far in 5 years of chasing. And my gosh, that was so beautiful. It is a moment I'll take with me to the grave. So how could I ever regret making that choice to witness something so powerful?
Yeah.
In an idealistic world, I wish I could have the whole cake. I could do that.
Sure, you could do both, but
delay a week and we can accommodate your schedule, but we make choices and it's a good decision or it's not. But what I can assure people is that sometimes I'm in a really fortunate position where I have brands or platforms who come to me, and for example, I'm featured in Photographer, which is a TV series that came out on Disney Plus. And when they came to me, it's like, what are you going to do? And so I can't exactly
you got total freedom to do what you like.
Pretty close to it. They didn't pay for my trips. Like a lot of crews will say, they go, we're going to document what you're doing. Like we're just going to tag along because you would be doing this, whether we were there or not. I have certain issues with this, but that's a whole different subject. But it just gives transparency.
I'd like to dive into that a little bit later.
Oh, definitely. To be honest, I actually got pretty angry because it's happened to me quite a few times in my career where I've been fortunate to be on the front side, like in front of the camera, and these crews come in, they want a fantastic idea because it needs to be interesting for the audience. But
and it saves them being creative and coming up with their own ideas too.
I basically create the idea for the episode.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating because at the end of that, what I'll be honest with, I spoke to one of the producers and I was like, excuse my language, like, bullshit. don't you ever do that to another photographer again, because you didn't just tag along, you completely influenced my trip. If I had done things on my own term, I would have achieved a lot more images. I would have had a chance to experiment and try things. But because of a film crew, it's no, we have to slow things down. We need to get behind the scenes. We need to
Yeah,
have
they've got to set up. They've got to get
yeah,
lighting if there needs to be lighting, yada yada. Yeah, I get it.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's tough because there's a lot of give and take.
yeah.
But my experience
A
now
shoot on your own is very different. Yeah.
very different. So on one hand, yes, I was paid a fee, and I was able to use some of that fee to help make those trips happen. And of course, for me, it was worth it. But moving forward with other productions, I would definitely fight for my position a lot harder. Where it's like, no, if you want to tag along, know that you're going to influence, you're going to add all these extra days. So my time needs to be accounted for. And it's tough to be in that position initially because you think, oh, if I do this, they might go, we'll find someone else. But as you like, we all start the same place in this career. We all go, gosh, I just want the experience. I just want that chance. I just need to get the door. But once that foot's in the door, not even in the door, you're standing in that door and walk through it. At some point, you get that confidence and go, my time is valuable and I'm going to fight for this. And if it means I lose it, at least my principle, it's going to protect me. It's hard. We can't let others not value our time and our worth.
Absolutely. It's the old adage, I can't eat exposure.
Yeah. Oh God, no.
Exposure isn't going to fill the tank of my car, you know.
I know. And there was a great example in a cartoon. I wish I could find that one again, but it was just this whole setup of buying a hot dog at a fair and can I pay an exposure? And it's like, no. I think it was from Oatmeal, that cartoon. Yeah, it's hard for particularly like younger people getting in this industry. Sometimes you think, you know what, I'll do it. I'll do it for free. I'll just do anything to get my foot in. And these days, that's not exactly the best way to do it. I like to tell people, use your gut instinct. Is this, by doing this for free, do you think that is it going to give you experience that you could not get anywhere else? Do you think these people will value you? I think you just have to be careful how you start. Because, for example, I've seen young kids give images away for free to publications. And then in time, they go, okay, this costs money. Why am I not getting paid?
You started that way and you've set a precedent and it's carried on. Yeah. I'm still getting approached by brands that want to maybe give you a piece of kit or whatever to do a review on. But then you sit down and say to them, okay, so what am I getting out of this other than you saying that this photographer uses this particular piece of kit? Because I'm going to spend, if I do this for you, I'm going to spend at least 2 or 3 hours out in the field, at least, probably then 5 to 6, maybe even 10 hours in post-processing, and that might just be the photography, let alone if there's video attached to it, etc., etc. And then you add up, plus the fuel costs, plus tolls, plus all of the, and that's not even just my time itself being considered.
I got a great example. I won't name the brand, but it is one of your high-end car brands. So at first you get the email going, oh my God, this brand knows who I am. And wow, okay, this could be.
Yeah, it's great. Makes the ego feel good.
Oh, it does. But then I look at the deal and it's like, so wait a second, you want to loan me a car for a year. So their spiel was, we're going to save you a year of car payments. It's, I already have a car. I'm not going to sell a car to only then have to buy a car again in a year's time. I'm still going to be in the same predicament, if anything, 12 months behind because, well, I have to pick up things where I left it.
Yep.
And so it's okay, so you loan me a car for a year and then go, right, we want, what was it, like a couple pieces of content per month.
Wow.
No fee. So it's like, wait, let me get this straight. You want to loan me a car to create content for you for free. And then I'm like, no, I'm good. And I remember this person who like, it had introduced me and I think they were a bit offended going, gosh, I've helped you, Chris. I've helped you get noticed by this luxury brand. I'm like, that's nice and all. But as you say, I can't eat exposure. And I sure can't fork out my own money to promote a very high-end brand like On. And so I just hope others can have that awareness, but also confidence.
I think it's definitely an increasing trend from a lot of brands is to do that sort of affiliate marketing as opposed to formal marketing where they're actually paying. And to be honest, I think, let's say with car brands and a couple of other things, but a lot of products in particular, now that AI's come along, there's this trend now to say, all right, I don't need to hire a photographer. I can type some prompts in and get my can of cola or whatever it is to look exactly how I want, just by, I might pay somebody a few seed bucks to get the right prompts if I don't know what I'm doing with AI. But even there, it doesn't take that much effort to come up with an image that you're going to use. And I can see that middle of the road photographer, middle of the road modeling and so forth, going down the toilet a bit with people going out and using AI and other tools that are available to them to produce all of this stuff without paying for it.
Yes and no. AI, there's definitely been a lot of fear in the creative industries of how am I going to be protected? But the great thing for me personally is I'm a photojournalist. Like I document things that are real. And so that can never be replaced.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, AI is illustration. Illustration's always been there, especially in the advertising world. It's just
absolutely
more prevalent. But when it comes to products, for me, I can't argue against AI. I think it makes sense for brands. If the AI technology is there, great, create, because like already for a lot of product photography, it's already heavily edited. So to a certain degree, it's great. Less carbon footprint and they can push it out. But then it's such a layered subject. I'm not a fan of AI. I don't want to use it.
I find it boring. There's a few things I use for, in terms of image generation anyway.
Oh God, yeah. There's been that trend of, I don't know, what is it? It's AI is create me an image of a coffee dad or something.
Yeah.
So spit that image. And then it's no, make him more coffee. And they keep pushing it until it gets to this psychedelic realm. And it's always the same outcome. No matter what subject, it's always a very similar outcome. It's boring because AI is not experience in any of the word.
And to be honest, it's not truly creative either.
So
in and of itself, the guys that actually created the code and the algorithms, very creative. They're pushing boundaries. As an older IT guy, love what they're doing.
Yeah, AI has a place, but what I don't understand is why does AI have to come into the creative industries? Why isn't AI replacing other jobs that no one wants to do?
It's good at repetitive stuff that nobody wants to do.
No, but for some reason, it's no, we'll keep those jobs, but we'll replace the fun job with AI. That makes no sense.
No sense at all.
Yeah. I in the medical field can do wonders, absolute wonders. Like I've heard of surgeons talking about how AI technology can be within 0.0001% of precision. Like, and the human hand can never be that precise. So I'm not against AI in certain ways, but in the creative field, you won't see me using it. And I don't care if I get left behind. Like I even had my neighbor suggest I have to write a grant proposal over the next couple of weeks. And my neighbor said, use ChatGPT. And I'm like, no, I won't use it because to me, it is a form of cheating. It is a form of laziness. Like I should be able to use my brain and my education to formulate words that you can tell someone there needs to be that human feeling, that connection.
Yeah. I don't mind using it as a starter for some things to give you as an ideas generator. It's okay. It's not great. If you want to, if you want some ideas for, say, a marketing campaign or whatever, typing in, okay, so show me some marketing ideas for product X, and it'll spit something out. 90% of which will be rubbish, but there might be a nugget or two in there, and it might just spark another idea that you've got. Beyond that, though, I'm not a big fan of it. I do use it for editing my podcast because it takes away a very repetitive process for me, taking out all the ums and ahs and reducing silence. So if there's a break in our conversation or you had to go and put the cat out or whatever and we had a break in the conversation, I can press one button and all that disappears, which is marvelous. Saves me having to look for it, saves me having to go through and individually edit it and handcraft it. I still do some of that, but mostly it's getting rid of a boring, laborious process that will just take up time and really do my head in.
Which is when AI is an asset.
Which is what it's for.
Yeah, the function, when it makes sense. It's yes, absolutely. I disagree with anyone who can implement it into their practice where it will save them time. For me, I haven't seen any ways that it would save me time personally.
And that's fair enough.
Yeah. As one person had told me in passing, is it all comes down to what each of us are willing to tolerate. Like me using a computer is a form of AI. And using Photoshop and Lightroom, it's a form of AI.
Well, even down to what's going on in cameras now. If you've got a mirrorless camera today, there will be some form of AI Canon's already got AI autofocus going on. So
Absolutely. It's just, what are we willing to tolerate? And for each of
that's
us,
it.
that's just going to be very different. And it's funny with photography, because I noticed at some point I wasn't having fun with being a photographer anymore, which was wild to think, because I remember here on the coast, I didn't care how bad the surf was. I would go out every day just because I loved being out there and shoot.
Yeah.
And then at some point, because I remember the newspaper world, I remember watching some of the older guys, and I could see photography became a job. It wasn't a passion anymore. But I'll never be that person. But fast forward, I became that person that I said I never would. And what I had to do was I did a huge reset on my kit. I got rid of everything
Wow.
and with Leica. And the main reason for switching for Leica was because of the M11.
Yep.
And it's interesting because it is a manual focus camera. And
Mm.
at first I thought, oh, am I foolish? Like, why am I doing this? Like, why am I giving up autofocus? I do have the SL2. So, of course,
Yeah.
for white situations, I require autofocus because I can't tell a brand, oh, sorry, I wasn't quick enough on the old focus ring. But for my personal work, when I went down the Grand Canyon last year for 3 weeks, I shot everything on the M11 with 35 mil. Obviously, with practice, I've gotten better at manually focusing. And look, sometimes I miss images, but it brought back some spontaneity to my photography. Times when we try to control too much, I just felt like my old system was, it's perfect color, it's perfect sharp, it's perfect this, and the image feels like it's losing the character or the soul. Like it just, there's something not here.
Yeah, right.
So the M11 for me is the camera that re-sparked joy in photography for me.
No thoughts of going back to film?
Oh, I've been very tempted with film. I do have a little fun Polaroid camera from
Okay.
Leica
Yeah.
that I get to dabble in, like that simple film. But I believe it's the M6. I have been very tempted to go to that. Haven't made the jump yet, mainly because that's more money. But I think, yeah, I see friends who do pick up film cameras again and they post their rolls online. And I just think, oh, I just love how it looks. And doesn't matter what
You
AI,
can't replicate it. No matter what you do, digital processing, yeah, you make it look a bit like a film, but it does have its own character,
I
even
love,
even
yeah.
after scanning
Yeah.
and post processing. And
Yeah, it's so nice to realize how many things we cannot replace. Like, for example, records. They came back into fashion so hard. And whilst people go, I can't play 1,000 songs, but the experience of getting up, taking off this tangible thing that you can hold in your hands, you can feel that vinyl. But then when you put it on, you put the needle on, and then just that warm sound that you
yep,
get, it's like
yep.
you cannot beat
I'm
that.
still the same with, in particular, hardcover books.
Yes.
I've read a few books on the phone and on Kindles and whatever, and the experience just A, isn't the same, B, isn't as satisfying, isn't as enjoyable. But you get a nice hardcover book that's got that really tissue thin paper and nice print. It smells, it feels, it's an experience in itself.
Oh, I
And
love books.
yeah, and to me that kind of harking back to the analog world. I'm much the same with a lot of my photography. I don't feel it's actually finished unless I've printed it. And even if I've only printed it 5x4 or whatever, it's still in print. And I've seen, okay, this actually looks the way that I want it to look.
Yeah, yeah. And that's why I love that I met the chief of Kodak for Europe and Africa regions. And it was interesting to sit down with him. I was doing this gathering at Leica's headquarters in Germany. And I was like, what? And he'd been with the company for, what was it, 20, 30 years? And I was like, oh, you've got a story to tell. And he's like, yep, I've been there when we're at the peak or when we're at our very lowest, going bankrupt and thinking,
Yeah.
come back. And then he said, nowadays, I can't keep up with demand.
Yeah, they can't produce enough film for the demand that's out there. Yeah.
So I just think it's funny. We always come full circle, but I think at the end of the day, we all crave. It's a bit like how a lot of us mentally struggle with social media. I wish everyone could just find their local community. And for me, here on the Sunshine Coast, that came in the form of rock climbing. I know
Yep.
that every weekend or even throughout the week, I can always go see the same group of friends, hang out, and just feel like I belong somewhere. Whereas if I stay scrolling on my phone, and sure, I can message friends from around the world, but again, I need to be in the presence of others or feel alive.
Yeah.
So yeah, anything. Doesn't matter how advanced technology gets, we often mistake it with progression.
One of the things I'm interested in terms of creative expression is how people's styles have developed, are developing, and where they see them going if they actually consider where they want to take their styles. Is that something you've thought about? And if so, is it something you can describe to me?
It's interesting because I know I guess I do still have a very distinct style. And the thing that I'm drawn to the most is finding landscapes that have a lot of negative space. So I think that's why I'm attracted to particularly like the ocean or desert landscapes, is that in those barren landscapes, I love finding this simplicity. And yeah, my favorite images are probably the ones that are what would feel very empty frames, but there's just that one bit of detail. And I find it's not easy to find those spaces. It's
No.
to find chaos. It's everywhere, but somehow find organized chaos. It's a challenge. But when it happens,
It's finding the patterns that exist that are just randomly generated, maybe, but I agree, they are hard to find. They're one of the things that I always go looking for too. And
definitely.
whether it's movement of water because it follows a consistent channel or whatever, or whether it's it's a skill I think a lot of people don't recognize until they actually try to apply it and go looking for it.
Definitely. And yeah, I suppose particularly it's through the vision projects that I have, the ones where I'm like, there's this very specific idea I need to create. And I would say that's probably the most distinct style that I've created in my career. I never really thought about it going, okay, this is how I'm going to define my career. It's like I just kept doing that, and I still keep doing that. Sometimes I get frustrated with when I document certain situations. Sometimes I worry that, oh, if I just shot like everyone else, am I just shooting the same frames that anyone else could do for this brand? And that gets frustrating. And at the moment, I'm trying to shift that and stop trying to frame everything, like stop trying to control, try to be even more present in the moment. And yeah, I think it's good to evolve and to change and to reset, because if we keep shooting the same way our entire career, it gets a bit boring. I think it's exciting to change up the process.
Absolutely. And I guess in looking at that I guess says to me that there's been experimentation, and with experimentation comes failure. It's a natural part of why you're experimenting, is that you're going to find out what works, what doesn't work. How have you handled those failure moments where you might have only had a short period of time, or the light is going to change and you know that you haven't quite nailed it? How do you deal with those situations where you've gone out, you've taken the time, and it's just not worked?
A lot of them, particularly if I've traveled a long way, for the most part, there's enough time and opportunity to at least have some image. Like it might not be a memorable image, but there's some sort of documentation of, oh, cool, well, I was in this place, and some nice images. But the golden egg, like the one that I was truly chasing, oh, I have walked away from so many trips. I think maybe I've had enough failure. I was like, oh, okay, it'll happen again. I'll like, shit, I guess I gotta try again. And for example, like the image that recently won the Red Bull Loom, I guess you could call it like the lightning crack, the climbing image, is that idea was swirling in my brain for a good number of years, but it wasn't about illuminating the crack. At first, I was like, I know I want to shoot climbing at night. I have a few ideas and a few more I still want to try. But I remember being in Tasmania and with this crew, I was like, yeah, let's just try this. And I had these little light panels and shining it onto the rock. And it was some of the worst images I've taken. And it's that idea really didn't work. But I had to try. And I had to just see. And thankfully I was on like a 6
You weren't going to know until you did.
No. And I was on a 6-week trip. So there was so many opportunities to take other images and be creative. But I just knew, I was like, okay, tonight I've got some friends who are willing to hang out with me and go, okay, let's try it. And then I'm like, that failed spectacularly. Cool. I'm going to leave that idea for a while and I'll revisit it another time.
Sure.
And I think a lot of my ideas are like that. It's, okay, back to the drawing board. What am I going to do different next time? And at some point, the idea, it just swells. And then I go, wait a second, no one's ever illuminated a crack from within in the climbing world. Okay, I've got my next idea. And then I was going to turn up and just buy some cheap Christmas lights from Home Depot. And I was telling this to a filmmaker. He was with me in the storm chasing, and you're an idiot. You need to do this properly. And I was like, really? He goes, yeah. Talk to these guys in Canada, Moss LED. They have LED light or light tape. And yeah, I had to fork out quite a good chunk of my change, but it was worth it. holy mackerel, it was. And yeah, it's thank God that filmmaker got in my head, because I would have failed again spectacularly and with the film crew. So luckily I had the right gear. And sometimes you just got to talk to others in the industry, because sometimes sharing ideas, someone might go, well, wait a minute, did you think about this? And you go,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
well, I didn't think about
Why,
this.
why haven't you tried that? Which I do all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And thankfully that all came together. It was, oh, that would have broken my heart had I not nailed that. I think I would have had to come back again to have made sure I nailed it for the show.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I can assure you, I've definitely failed in front of, no, there's one story where I failed so bad for this brand. Oh, it wasn't a big budget, but it certainly wasn't small. But there was so many things wrong with that project, and I should have trialed the idea so much more before I brought in the whole crew. And I wanted to actually tell the story of failure. I wanted
Yeah.
this brand to have the confidence to go, hey, let's tell about how a photographer does fail, because we all do it so much. But for them, they're like, nope, we can't do that, because what if people blame our gear for that failure? And you say, oh,
That sort of brings me on to being risk averse versus risk embracing. You're obviously a bit of a risk taker, but that obviously comes with control and a great deal of thought about safety. And one of the things I do like to promote here is that if you're going to go out, particularly to places where there is some level of risk, and whether it's a rock shelf with a big waves crashing over them, or climbing a mountain or the side of a cliff, you've got to take precautions. How much planning do you put into a shoot where you're going to have people, say, suspended on ropes on the side of a cliff? What sort of things are you thinking about before you get there to make sure everyone's safe?
the main thing is, well, working with a crew who I know are competent in that field.
Yep.
If someone turns up and they're like, I don't have experience, you're not on the shoot. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
here to teach beginners. Like, you need to come in prepared. So I try and tell particularly younger people who are just getting into it, or doesn't matter what age you are, if you're just getting into it, build the skill set. Be an adventure photographer. And if you want to shoot climbing, you need to have climbing experience.
Yeah, you need to know what you're doing halfway up a cliff, because if you're stuck there, you're stuck there.
You're stuck. And
Yeah.
the last thing that anyone needs is going, I need to babysit you. And there are some times where I'm very thankful that, look, I try my best to train in climbing and be a strong climber. But if I'm shooting a world-class climber who is way stronger than I am, there are times where it's like, cool, this is the only line on this cliff, and the only way to get up is by you climbing it. So sometimes professional athletes have helped set ropes for me, because that was the only way to access.
Yeah, right.
But for the most part, if I can access my anchor points, then I do that, because I don't want athletes or other people to feel like we've got to babysit Krystle because she doesn't have the skill set or she doesn't have the competence. One needs to focus on their own situation. We help each other. But at the end of the day, you really need to be self-sufficient, because we're all trying to keep ourselves safe. And if everyone's got the right skill set, then in theory, it should be a very smooth and safe shoot.
Have you had any situations where you've gone, oh my God, I've pushed it too far?
Oh, I've had accidents. Sometimes it's just unlucky. I broke my ankle 3 weeks ago, and
Ouch.
oh, I should know. It was one, it's hard. The gut instinct's a hard one to read. And
Yeah.
that day, I remember halfway through the session, I said to my friend, I'm like, gosh, I'm not psyched. It's weird. Like, I have hard sessions and things aren't going my way, but you think, okay, it's just not my day. For some reason, this day, I was like, I am just really not psyched. And I should have gone, I need to stop. I just need to walk away. But then I think, no, I'm just being a sook. Go on, do another lap, try again, finish off well. And just through poor decision making and a simple mistake, it resulted in me being flung into the cliff face and broke the ankle. So even at 37, I'm still having to learn or relearn lessons I should know better about. But yeah, accidents happen. I pushed it too much. I just try, like, at this point, I have to focus on my health and fitness, because earlier in my 30s, I've definitely turned up thinking, fine, I can always just rock up and keep up. And some point, I remember early in my 30s, I was like, oh, actually, I'm really struggling, and I am the dead weight in this group today. And it really sucked to be in that position. Yeah, it's a hard industry sometimes, because it requires not just your skill set as a photographer, it also requires a skill set to be a competent, fully skilled athlete.
Yeah, yeah. I guess with that comes the point of longevity, where The body just isn't going to do what you want it to do or need it to do. Have you thought about what happens after that point, or is that just, I'll come to that when I get to it?
I think about it. I often think about, okay, if I'm going to pivot, how do I pivot? Like, what's
Hmm.
next? I do get jealous of those who aren't afraid to change. Sometimes I feel, am I still 100% in the adventure? And to a degree, I think I'm always going to have a piece of me that wants to be a part of the adventure world because I really love it, the lifestyle. But I do feel myself going, what else is there to do with this career? I don't want to just be known as a adventure photographer. And so by moving into extreme environments and working alongside Nick Moir, we have certain projects we want to move into that involve storm chasing, bushfires, you name it, which is exciting because he said, I think you should consider going back to university and studying meteorology. And I was like, you know what? I think you're right.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's interesting. I think for a long time, I failed to stay curious enough to keep building my skill set. Because sometimes that takes financial investment, and I didn't always have that. So I'm trying to find ways now of going, okay, what is it I've always want to learn about? Because life's short. And this year, my gosh, this year is just ripping by. And I'm like, I don't want to get to the end of the year and go, what did I do? Did I learn something new this year? Did I try something new?
Yeah, cool. How much of your success would you attribute to being able to communicate well?
My communication skills are not always the best.
You're doing all right today.
I do all right. Definitely had some good practice and podcasts and presenting on screen. But sometimes when it comes to my passion projects, the idea is up here clear as day, but I don't know how to articulate it.
Yeah.
So some athletes are like, what is it you're trying to do? And it's, I don't know how to explain it, but you just need to trust I will somehow get it there. But my biggest challenge is learning how to communicate ideas because I still think I'm trying to formulate it. And no, I guess I work by myself so much that I just wish others could just see exactly what I'm thinking and just know what they have to do. But
what about in terms of the visual communication, the use of your photography in communicating and telling a story with just one image or a series of images?
I hope I'm doing a good job, but it's so subjective. I've seen people look at my images and just go, meh. And you're like, that's just not your cup of tea, and that's fine.
Didn't connect, yeah.
But then I see others who absolutely just start to go, okay, like that, again, that lightning crack image, a lot of people thought that was the sun. And I was, wow, I just never thought people would make that association. But of course, I was there. So I knew that was just physically, or not physically, but yeah, it was just not possible. But it was cool to see people's imagination going, oh, I think that's the sun. And then they start going, okay, where are they? And how did the sun get through that crack? So as soon as people start to engage on that level, that they're asking questions and they're trying to figure it out, then that to me is a success. It may not be a groundbreaking story, but I think art is all about engagement.
Yeah, with engagement, it's also potentially a tool for education and advocacy. And I know a lot of your work is probably more towards some of the commercial stuff in terms of the commercial stuff you do, but your passion projects, they seem to me to be much more about the environment and the place and the feeling of place. How do you see your work in terms of being used for things like environmental education and advocacy?
The day, I just hope that others have the same curiosity that I do about the world around them. They've got curiosity, then they want to learn, they want to engage, they want to get outside, they want to go find their own adventures. And I think that's perhaps the greatest gift that my images could spark. It's not so much saying, oh, I want to share with people these amazing places or these far-flung places. Like, no, like I definitely had there is an aspect that is selfish, but in a healthy way. It's that I wanted to go outside and I wanted to go engage with this place. I wanted to go feel and experience it and see it. And I just hope people have that curiosity. It really breaks my heart when I see, I've gone to places and I see people walk around the phone, okay, snap, snap, and then their head's in the phone and all they want to do is post that photo and then they just leave. They didn't actually stay to experience.
Yeah, they didn't actually experience the place. Yeah.
No, and on one hand, someone could argue how I experience a place will not always be the same how someone else gets to experience it.
Very
But,
true.
oh, come on. When someone like, I was in Northern Territory and what was it, Mataranka Springs. I think that's the place. Beautiful hot spring. And I was on my way to Darwin and I stopped in. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning and there was a few of us just happily floating. It was silent. This young couple rocks up and I watched them and they come in, they sit in for maybe a minute and then the boyfriend runs back to the car and I was like, oh yeah, just watching. And then he comes back with a drone and then they launched the drone and oh, did I get vocal? And I was like, you cannot, like legally fly a drone above a crowd. And I was like, you don't have a permit.
You're in a national park.
You're in a national park. And I was just at him, and then everyone else started rallying around me. And of course, he was like, I don't fucking care. And I was like, yes, you fucking do, because you're going to land that thing now. Otherwise, I will take that remote out of your hands and throw it off into the bush or dispose of it. Anyways, at some point, they were obviously embarrassed because everyone's hating on them. So we
Yeah.
all came here to float in silence, just to start our day off in
Yeah.
a magical place. And then I noticed when I left, they had walked off to the side, and there she is in the shores doing the sexy poses. And then you think, this is your idea of your trip around Australia, like just trying to do sexy poses and post to Instagram. Man, I just
Get the Instagram likes. Yeah.
yeah, I just question is just your motivations. Like, why did you come all the way to this place? Did you want to see it? Did you want to actually, yes, take images, take video, but you just tell by the way they were acting and what they were there to do, they didn't come to enjoy the place. They just
Yeah.
came to find their dopamine hit.
Wow. I guess one of the other things I'm interested in terms of education is what has photography taught you about the world?
Photography became the tool that made me want to engage with the world.
Okay.
Photography itself, it's a tool. It's a vehicle for my creativity. What has it taught me? It was just, it was a vehicle for me to figure out how did I want to engage with the world around me.
Yeah.
Having a camera gave me the perfect excuse to just talk to strangers, because I was like, oh my God, you fascinate me. I want to take your photo. But if I didn't have a camera, it's maybe, I don't know, would obviously experience the world in a very different way.
Yeah.
But I think we all have to find, well, what is that spark in us? And it's amazing, like a writer would absolutely want to talk to every walk of life, because find a story, or the painter or the drawer, who knows? I just hope everyone finds that spark and figures out, how do I want to experience the world? And along the way, there is so many lessons to learn.
Yeah, very good. Do you prefer photographing alone or with other people?
Usually alone.
Okay.
Usually. There's some situations I don't mind others, because I know we see very differently. We're not taking the same image. If I'm doing a passion project, 100%, I'd rather be by myself, because I'm investing so much more than just simply taking a photo. But yeah, a few situations I don't mind hanging out with friends, because it is fun to hang out with other photographers. But sometimes I don't enjoy it, because with storm chasing, there are situations where we pull up and there are 30, 50, like he's still running around with cameras in it. I'm a little like, oh, I'm not here to compete. I don't want to try and figure out where am I going to find my different image. I'd rather just keep driving and just stop off somewhere else by myself, because sometimes it can feel like a circus.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same in terms of if it's not an organized gathering. If it's an organized gathering and I'm going, then that's fine. I don't mind that. But I usually tend to find the images I take there are quite different to the ones I take on my own.
Yeah, definitely.
Have you ever hit a creative wall? And if so, how have you handled it?
Yes. I found at some point I stopped dreaming. I wasn't thinking about new ideas. I was trying to figure out, why is this happening? Two reasons. One, at that point, I was traveling too much and I was just perpetually tired. I was always exhausted and I wasn't giving myself a chance to recharge. But the biggest one nowadays is whether I'm spending too much time on screens, because then I find myself, I'm just overstimulated, and I try to embrace moments of, I'll go out and sit on my balcony and make sure I don't take my phone with me. But I found, even when I make a cup of tea, I'm waiting for the kettle to boil and I think, oh, I'll quickly pick up my phone and get back to a message. It just feels like every second of the day, that bloody phone is there. And I'm like, oh, I gotta check messages, or I gotta call someone. And so I try to carve out time where I could sit out on my balcony and just stare off into space.
Nice.
I can create moments where I get bored, then I start to dream up concepts again.
Okay. What's the best and or worst advice anyone's ever given you?
I wouldn't say it's the worst advice, but the worst thing was someone telling me, you should give up trying to be a sports photographer because you're clearly not going to make it.
Wow.
And that came from a place of insecurity and
Yeah. There's usually something going on with that
absolutely.
person who makes that sort of comment.
It was an utter jerk. Worst advice, I don't know. I guess along the way, sometimes people tell you things you think, what on earth are you? But you just learn, okay, I appreciate you try to give me some words of, not wisdom, but just words. and we can choose to receive or to reject,
Yeah.
or to take one aspect of it. Maybe there was like a small aspect of it. Okay, that part makes sense, but that part,
Yeah.
no. Gosh, best advice. When I think back, one of my first mentors, he always said, no matter what you're doing, always have a passion project on the side.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, if I was getting paid full time to just do passion projects, wouldn't that be great? But it ain't going to happen. And so whatever mundane tasks we have to do to make sure that the bills are still being paid and we're surviving, but on the side, always keep a creative project going, because then you're fueling your creative spark.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, then it's very quick to fall into a trap of not being stimulated and just being bored, and not bored, but just you're not challenging yourself.
Yeah.
So having a creative project, whatever that be, for example, sometimes right now my balcony is a creative project because I want to try and figure out how to turn it into a jungle.
Okay.
It's different. It doesn't always have to be photography, but I think you just can't fall into that trap.
Yeah.
Have a shit day, you come home, okay, get you want to unwind in front of the TV, but is that going to be the best way to unwind? Like maybe pick up a book, maybe pick up a sketch pad and just draw things, or do something that,
Do some yoga. Yeah.
yeah, keep the spark alive.
Yeah. I think that's fantastic advice. What's your favorite thing about being a photographer?
I'd say it's just the ability to be creative. It's
Okay.
fun to dream up ideas and think, okay, I have an idea now. How am I going to visually execute this idea? And I think that whole process is just phenomenal, because at the end of the day, it's not about the image, it's about the process of photography that I absolutely adore.
Yeah. What's your least favorite thing?
Editing.
Really?
Or emailing. Actually, no, emailing is probably my least favorite, just because I dream one day my inbox will be back to zero. But
Good luck with that.
it's just, I get it's a necessary thing these days, but it just feels like it never ends.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely have appreciated, I take less images now. I try to think back to the Kodak days where I go, I want to be really conscious. I don't want to shoot 50 images of the same thing because I think, oh, did I get it? Did I get it? It's sure, take a couple because we're in the digital age, but the more images I take, the more editing there is. So therefore, if I'm a greater photographer in the field where I can recognize moments and know that I nailed it, I can move on and just be smarter with my time, smarter with my energy. Yeah. Create a sense of efficiency.
What does editing look like for you? Is it something that you hate doing, or is it just a necessary evil?
My biggest problem is I'm sitting here looking at a box of hard drives going, oh my God, one day I'm going to tackle this and I'm going to organize this archive somehow, magically. Because right now I'm just chaos. I grab a hard drive, I dump a card on it, I quickly edit and do what I have to, which my editing is very simple because I don't do much. But my organization is atrocious. It's just, I hate how, sometimes I think, you know what? Not that I wish this, but then I think if I threw this box out, am I actually going to miss much out of this box? So I just think I just need to make sure I have my main archive always protected.
Yeah.
Images that I know that,
Yeah, your portfolio worthy stuff. Yeah.
oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I know this is so much where I'm like, I don't think I would ever look at these images again.
Okay. So you're not one to go back into the archives and
Not often. No, I like moving on. Obviously, yeah, my archive, I could probably go through and I think probably choose maybe about 50 images. And I'm like, great,
okay.
I want to lose these. Maybe it's more, but it's not a very big number, I can assure you. It's
Yeah.
definitely not a big number. Like it wouldn't be like 1,000. No, but I could edit my whole career down and probably just put it on one hard drive.
Wow. Yeah.
But yeah, there's just a lot of noise there.
Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to get rid of it though, isn't it?
It's hard because you think, what if they want this?
That's it. It's been wonderful having a chat to you. We probably need to wrap up now. Who should I be talking to on the podcast?
Nick Moir, he's the chief photographer of Sydney Morning Herald. He is an absolute excitable character when it comes to photographing the weather. And I think that is such an incredible niche because a bit like adventure photography is not just about turning up and capturing these sports. It's like I need to know my sports intimately. Like I need to, know so much more than just being a photographer. And same for weather. How Nick operates in the field, I just think it's absolutely fascinating, and why I'm also pursuing a similar route now.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Thank you for that. I've got one more question, and it's one that I've been trying to get to the bottom of for photographers right from the beginning of the podcast. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
No. That's easy. No, I love pineapple, not on a pizza.
Okay, fair enough. Fair
No,
enough.
I'm sorry, like pizzas, is it pasta or pizza? I think it's a similar thing. There's a rule. You should only ever have 3 ingredients. That's it. And I think there's something to that. Someone was saying,
I think for pasta you can go a little bit further. Pizza, though, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
yeah,
The
but
fewer ingredients, the better.
someone said if you want to test a true chef, they should be able to cook pasta with just, oh, what was the one ingredient? It was just like pasta and what was it? Salt or cheese? I don't know. It was something really simple, like
Basic.
toppings, no flavors. But they said a true chef knows how to cook pasta and you can eat it. Oh no, sorry, pasta and oil. That's what it was. Just pasta.
Okay, wow.
If they're a great chef, they know how to make that taste fantastic.
Fair enough. All right. It's been wonderful getting to know you a little bit better, Krystle. Thanks for taking some time. Where can people find your work?
2 ways. They can either head to my website, which is just www.com. The next best thing would be on Instagram, which is then at Krystle J Wright.
Fantastic. Thanks very much.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Vero, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm Grant. Hope to see you out shooting soon.